Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the DJ the Money Coach Financial Expert Series, brought to you by the Seven Spheres of Money. I'm your host, Nick Westbrooks. And as always, I'm joined by Mr. Seven Spheres of Money himself, DJ the Money Coach. And we're joined by two very special guests. So we won't waste any time. We'll jump right in so DJ can give his glowing introduction of these two special guests. Take it over, DJ.
Absolutely, man. Thank you again, Nick. And yeah, man, this is a bucket list for us here at the DJ the Money Coach Financial Expert Series. We pride ourselves bringing the best, the brightest entrepreneurs in our community and tell their story. And you know these people already. So we're not going to waste a lot of time with my story because it's irrelevant today. So we want to talk about two up-and-coming disruptive entrepreneurs that are about to revolutionize the auto industry, which I've been a participant in as a licensed professional for 20 years. The first person is on the Forbes 30 of 30, who is on Vice TV. He's been on the Breakfast Club. He's been on EYL. And his story is a little similar to mine. Self-taught, only went to community college for a semester, if I think, which was a waste of time, which I can agree. And created, $1 million business that he sold, and then created a venture capital company in Harlem that was geared towards helping people that look like us, and blew that up and is still growing. I was actually on the webinar earlier with his organization, and now he's actually creating a business that's an artificial intelligence, big data driven to actually eliminate the bias in our community and actually give us a fair insurance premium across the board. And wow. That's John Henry, but his partner in crime, who's phenomenal, she actually is a genius in her own right. And she actually has a graduate degree from MIT. She went to George Washington University as well. She actually worked at the Brookings Institute, one of the places that I love to follow. And she's a city planner and a big data engineer mindset of herself. And she actually is an entrepreneur also, and she's a double minority, qualified person, the awesome Carey Anne Nadeau. Thank you for coming on our show and taking time out of your busy schedule, and welcome to our platform, and the floor is all yours.
I love it. Thank you, man. Thank you. What a great introduction. And yeah, I thought you captured it really well. I actually thought I caught myself saying, well, I'm gonna play this back just for, to be able to just get the cliff notes of how you describe Loop. But yeah, man, we're pleased to be on, and we're happy to take it any which way that you think is most valuable for your audience. We could dive deep into the specifics of how to build an insurance business, from rate filing and product development on that side, to engineering, to the business case, to raising capital. We could also talk about our views of money personally, but also the nuance that is very specific to venture-backed companies, and how the attitude towards capital is a little bit differently there, and how that could be good and could also be very bad. Could talk about investing, could talk about any number of things. So happy to follow your lead here.
Absolutely. Carey?
Yeah, pleasure to be on. Thanks, guys, for having us. I think John summed it up pretty well. We could probably go in a couple different directions, but I'm excited to roll up my sleeves with your audience.
Absolutely. Well, we're about just conversation, casual conversation. So first thing I like to know is, how did you guys meet? I mean, because I know you met at a conference, but I'm not specifically sure about which conference, because you guys, to me, are like the yin and the yang. You come across to me, Carey, as a very introverted person who's kind of, starting to spread her wings. And John is an extrovert, and he's got the gift of gab. So how did you guys meet?
That's funny. Yeah. So we met at a conference, and funnily enough, or ironically enough, Carey was on stage pitching her company, her first business, Ometry. And it was a pitch competition, and she won that competition. So data people are typically reserved, but when it comes time to, roll your sleeves up and pitch, Carey, she definitely brought it home. And I was doing my thing as a keynote speaker. for that conference is the Aruba Tech Conference, ATech it's called. And yeah, we connected then, and we always stayed in touch with respects to, you know, all the cool shit that she was doing. She was already building AI predictive models for insurance carriers, or for, at that point it was for cities. And, you know, I can let her, of course, tell her story. But for me, what caught my eye was, wow, she actually had technology that could predict where car crashes were likely to happen. You believe that? You can, by measuring the roads and the sheer historic density of car crashes that have occurred in the past, and then layering in weather information, traffic volume, roadway infrastructural data. Like, you know, it was just, I get inspired anytime I see something that I couldn't do on my own, if that makes sense, you know? And I was just like, whoa, I couldn't even begin to assemble this. And the raw power was really, really great. So yeah, we stayed in touch throughout, you know, my journey in real estate, in Harlem Capital and so on. And we had circled back up after, you know, afterwards. And by that point, you know, we had uncovered a lot more things that were true about the insurance industry. It evolved from, hey, I have this cool piece of technology that can predict where shit's gonna go wrong, to, wait a second, this should be more or less the only thing that goes into how, you know, insurance is priced and how resources are deployed at the city government level even. But how come there are a lot of industries that are very financially robust, leaning on things that when you look a little bit more closely, there's a lot of structural bias baked in, and that financial weight is actually becomes a downward burden, a downward pressure on people's economic upward mobility. Wait a second. So it went from something nifty and cool to, hey, what if we package this, put it at the heart of a business, and you know, forget all these systems that are gatekeeping. Let's go direct to consumer, which is more difficult, which is more daunting. You know, you have to make the unit economics work, but at scale, it becomes more powerful. So that was kind of the way that we had come in contact with one another, and you know, it explains my joining in this business. And of course, there's the mission piece, but then of course there's the technical piece. So we can kind of each speak to the yin and the yangs. I agree, it is kind of yin and yang.
I feel the yin and the yang too, if I can touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely, please do, Carey.
Yeah, so John and I are co-founders, we're also co-CEOs. And I think there's like kind of two functional areas you have to be kick-ass at to have an auto insurance business. And the first is, can you price people fairly? Can you offer a product that makes sense for people to buy? And then the second is, how do you package that in an experience where people might actually enjoy being with their car insurance company? So John did a great job of describing like all of the really cool technical things we built into making sure that the product that we sell is fair, but then also John's experience just having an incredible background building mission-driven organizations, from his time in Harlem at CoFound Harlem, where he was building an incubator to build small and local business and ecosystem in Harlem, to Harlem Capital, which is obviously much more well known for because the size of the check was bigger, but the impact was similar, right? Trying to reinvest in people of color, minorities, women, to empower those communities to achieve greater heights. So it feels like a really cool pairing that weirdly works for the business of selling automobile insurance. You really have to have both the yin and the yang to do it well, I think.
Oh, absolutely. How did you stumble upon the open data information that led you on the path to start the first iteration, which has now become Loop?
It's like a 20-year career. So it's not easy to find. Weirdly, it's out in the ecosystem, but it's buried. It's hard to understand. If you don't have like a PhD in spreadsheets, it can be overwhelming just from the jump. But the amount of information out there is really voluminous. So as a statistician, as a geographer, somebody who cares a lot about numbers in great quantity, being able to predict and be more useful to anticipating people's future behaviors, I see it as a gold mine, right? This is so much knowledge if you can actually package it in a way that can impact people's lives. So we've chosen to do that through the vehicle of insurance, offering a financial product that helps people actually go get a job farther away from home, or bring their kid to childcare farther afield, or like just have a trunk to put some groceries in versus lugging them over their shoulders, right? Cars are really a meaningful purchase for people, and helpful. So it feels like a great product to bring to market for a lot of people.
Can you also touch on like the that Information Act, and like what, like that initial kernel of like for the model?
Yeah, so at about, I want to say it was 2010, he passed Open Data Act at the federal level, which started to encourage agencies, for the sake of transparency and accountability, to publish the information that they were collecting. And so you saw data.census.gov pop up, where you can go and find really pretty powerful information. The Trump administration did walk a lot of that back. So you used to be able to get things like who visited the White House logbook. Everybody who walks in the door signs the book and dates it. So some information is no longer available given the last administration, but it's a real treasure trove of information. And more broadly, it inspired state and local governments to do the same, to follow suit. And so you can go to Montgomery County, Maryland, right outside of DC, and they have one of the best open data portals in the entire world, right? They're internationally renowned suburban community, metro accessible DC, that they're publishing information down to how many garage parking spots are still available right now in this moment. If I were to drive down to the Civic Center and need to park my car in a garage, you can go online and find that out, because they're so far advanced in terms of the amount of information they're collecting and the way that they're making it accessible to others. And that movement is still happening. So we collect, for example, car crash data. Pretty much every state publishes the location of car crashes, when they happen, where they happen, sometimes information about severity. So that really helps us, this sort of more broad government movement towards transparency and accountability also allowed us to see things, to measure things that we couldn't measure before. So it's a really powerful tool.
Man, you know what? That kind of leads me, Carey Anne and John, to Blue Ocean, because the auto industry, like I said, I've been in it for 20 years. I'm a licensed insurance agent. I've actually ran a financial practice for 20 years. And I look at this as one of them old boy systems, as you talked about on Breakfast Club, about the institutional racism that actually bias people just from their zip codes and from their element. So for me, I'm excited about meeting you guys, because I think you're stumbling on something that's going to actually dissolve that system and actually make you as the #1 player in the industry. Can you talk to that a little bit?
You know what I can say? I can say that I have chills, right now at 4:19 Central Time, Thursday, March 4th, 2021 in Austin, Texas, hearing you say that. And I actually want to refer back to this clip whenever it is that we, do achieve some milestone like $100 million of gross written premium. Let's make it that, Carey. When we achieve $100 million of gross written premium, we will play this clip back, and it's going to be one of those cool deja vu moments, because I couldn't agree more. And the reason I had asked Carey to touch on that initial insight, when I look at so this initial insight that I asked Carey to zoom in on, which was the open data information, right? It's an alternate data pool that is allowing us to assess risk differently than, so for example, right? If you come up affluent, you go to private high school, you go to Ivy League, you do 2-year banking, you do 2-year private equity, you do 2-year MBA, and you come out, and then you're on track to partner at Goldman, you're going to see the world firmly shaped by that lens, right? And so the same analogy can be drawn to the data that you use to assess people, right? So if you're looking at income, education, credit. You know, if you're just focused so much on the individual, you're missing the entire world around you. We have the measures now to measure the world around you. You know, we have an understanding of the roads, of the weather, of the traffic. Like, you know, roadway circumstances impact something like 35% of a car crash's likelihood of happening. That's not being measured at all. So anyway, all that to say that I agree. I think we have stumbled on a blue ocean. But here's the interesting thing. Now, if we can dig into a business lesson.
Absolutely.
This blue ocean seems like a red ocean. It seems like it is completely full to the brim. You know how hard it was for us to raise money, right? I've been there, done that. I've raised money before and still it was hard, right? With my track record and Carey's pedigree, it was still hard because at face value, people say, well, it's not a blue ocean. What do you mean? You got Progressive, you got Geico, you got Root, you got all these players. Like, what do you mean you're going to go and do it different? But when you zoom into the market and you see that they're all doing it, they're all competing against each other. So they're in the red market. But then there's an entire other world within that market that if you, for example, if I was doing this alone and I didn't have the technical prowess and the infrastructure behind me that Carey brings, I would still be in a world on my own just by switching up the branding. Instead of, you know, State Farm and Allstate and like all these corporate feeling badges that are reminiscent of banks, and they all talk about numbers, 15 minutes in 15%, 30%, 50%, 40%. You do this in 10 minutes, 7 minutes, numbers, just by the adjacent positioning that makes it more about people, we would win. Just that alone, we would win. Now, when you add brand and you can add segmentation and you can add more modern measures and data, that's the Trinity, you know? So we definitely are taking this market for the, you know, we're definitely taking it. We don't have much money to do it compared to a lot of those big guys, but what we have is the movement and we have a community, and I ain't never seen Geico on the Breakfast Club. I ain't never seen Flo on Earn Your Leisure. You know, I ain't never seen State Farm on DJ the Money Coach.
I don't know. I'd like to see Warren Buffett on the
Right. You know what?
That'd be pretty cool.
You make something real imperative here is that I think one of the advantages that you both come together is that you got street smarts with intellect. She's got intellect with street smarts. And you've got the hedgehog concept. I'm sure you probably ever read the book Good to Great. There's a chapter that talks about passion, your ability to be number one in an industry that you've never been in, if you got the right demographics, and then the economic engine is the millennial and the artificial intelligence all coming together as a perfect storm. So talk to me about the challenges that women, Blacks, and minorities have just from an entrepreneurial mindset of how to leverage the playing field in this day and age, and what you would advise somebody that's coming down the same pathway as you two are doing right now. Talk to me a little bit about that, please.
I think I'll take it from even a little bit of a different angle, because I think about it as like my two X chromosomes versus John's XY chromosomes when I enter a room don't make us different. What makes me different is when I sit down at the table, I'm saying something new, particularly in insurance. If everybody's an older white gentleman at the table, the bar is pretty low to introduce new ideas from different perspectives. So I think for those coming up in the insurance industry, it's really just acknowledging that your differences actually make you the future growth of that business. And so, you know, honoring your sort of place at the table and stepping in and saying, it's important that I have a different perspective, and it automatically gives me an advantage.
Yeah, Carey, how would you answer that same question, Carey, if you zoomed out and addressed it for being an entrepreneur as a whole?
Absolutely.
As an entrepreneur as a whole, I think it's a gentle balance of wanting to build a brand and reputation for yourself that is authentic to you being like a strong, dominant female. But that's also a myth in a way about women, right? That to be in a leadership position and to be at the top of your game, you need to be tough. And I don't know that that's how I feel about like how I've authentically brought myself to a leadership role within our organization. But it's a balance of like trying to manage that reputation and build that outward reputation so that people may take you seriously, and then staying true and authentic to yourself internally and how you run your team or how you're present for your team. So it's sort of a conflict that I think is
Sure, kind of catch 22 in that regard. John, how do you teach us about the modern day entrepreneur coming from your perspective? Because I built a cleaning company just like you did, actually in the actual janitorial business, took it to 7 figures from 96 to 2002, had big contracts with Fortune 50 companies. But just like you, when you talk about the doorman, I worked downtown Chicago working with the doorman, and I rose up and made the relationship. So I can relate to you in that regard. And then I sold that company just like you did. And I got into technology. I got into the bill pay business back in 2010, predecessor to Google Pay, Apple Pay, on a kiosk, going right head to head with MoneyGram and Western Union. So talk to us about that, because it was harder when I was doing it, but it seemed to be a little bit easier with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think that since the barrier has lowered, it creates more entrants, which means that you need to be, so it's a dichotomy, right? Because when it's difficult to enter, only the driven few / privileged will enter. And then from there, execution plays out. But from here, since the bar is so low, you can enter whether you're talented or not. So it's just the market is just flooded. And then, it requires a lot more talent to stand out, and where talent falls short, a whole lot of work. And then in the best teams that I've been on, it's very talented and work hard as well, right? And then from there, it's right. So talent, barrier to entry, ton of people. You don't need that much. The talent will get you far. Skills get you far. You combine them. That's when you get a founding team that's tight, that can go the distance. But then I believe that we're living in the mission economy, right? Mission unlocks doors that profit will not. I've seen this many times over in my career, even when I was running a financial services firm like Harlem Capital. Mm-hmm. That having the mission got us to the table with several billionaires, right? Now, our total fund was $40 million, right? Now, we had a multi-billionaire, several of them, invest in us. They don't get up for breakfast for $40 million. You understand? So, and then when they invest in our fund, they're not investing the whole amount. They might invest $1 million, even if we 5x their money, right? It would be $5 million if they invested 1 million. That's hardly a rounding error on the balance sheet. So why did that billionaire sit down with us? It was because of the mission. You see, so talent paired with skill gets you far, but as of especially in the last 5-7 years, now leading with mission, in addition to being talented and working hard, creates a movement. And when you can create a movement, you can allow people from all different walks of life that want to be part of the organization, A, want to invest in the organization, B, want to become corporate customers, C, they want to reinsure you, D, and E, they want to become customers. And we're doing something where we're going to take the mission even further, flip it on its head and say, yo, customers can buy equity in the damn company. Man. Right? So now customers also become shareholders. And so I really, really believe that you can take anything that you're doing, whether you're selling bananas, or beer or whatever, and you can infuse a mission behind it. And if I were selling bananas, I would create the sustainability brand behind bananas. Hey, did you know that banana farming is fucking up the world? Not with this brand. If I were creating beer, I would create beer for the intellect. Hey, that beer makes you foggy headed, not with bright beer. We're going to get you thinking right so that you can drink beer with your team. I created 2 brands on the spot just now. You can, I
caught it.
Any item near me, any item, and I will think of a brand around it. because brand is the way that you win in this 2021 economy when everything's accessible at the click of a button. So then the consumer ultimately is going to resonate towards the brand that you most feel connected to.
I have an important question for both of you. You both are considered minority owners of an up and coming, fast to grow, startup company that's in the technology sector. That's awesome. Can I play devil's advocate for 1 second? Your demographic is to help those who can't get insurance at the fair price. But what about internally in terms of your team that you're hiring and what the Loop, culture is and the Loop employee looks like? How do you keep that consistent versus, because you're in a global economy and you're trying to hire the best and the brightest across the landscape, but how do we get a lot of the people that look like us that you're servicing as consumers to actually be on the inside working with you as employees and shareholders? How do you do that without losing the investor of these big billionaires who only are, they may be mission driven, excited about, but at the end of the day, it's about money, because dollars, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Can you answer that for me? Because that's to my heart. That's what I would like to know.
That's a great question.
I can answer from my perspective, and John, I'd love to hear yours too. I think you start by setting an example for every other company that you can win with people that don't look like what you think they should look like because they've always looked like that forever. It's possible to demonstrate that, when you give people equity as employees, that you're investing in their financial wealth and their financial wealth building. One of the things we're aiming to do at Loop is actually offer all of our employees car insurance as a benefit.
Oh,
That's
wow.
something that any employer can do, right? Walmart can offer car insurance just like health insurance as a benefit. You want to make sure people get to work or have reliable childcare. Here's a great way to do it. Invest in people's mobility, because that's going to help them build financial wealth. So while it's a small investment for Loop right now, we're a small startup company. There's only so many states we're licensed to sell insurance in, but it's an example for other businesses that are operating that there's ways that we can actually do business and do well at the same time.
Oh,
Yeah, and to build off of that, this is, and we're in a very privileged position where we have capital, we're allocating capital, right? In our business, we choose who we hire. And a lot of the times the talent pool, particularly in insurance, is very white. So it is very easy to say.
It is white. I've been in it for 20 years.
It's white. Let's keep it a buck. It's white.
It's like that.
Let's keep it a grand.
It's just a bunch of white guys that all look the same.
Them Benjis, man. So then it's like, all right, bet. Well, how, so do we do what's expedient and hire the most vanilla point of view because it came first and it came fast? Or do we hold out a little bit longer for that point of view that's going to allow us to develop this product a little bit differently? Because it doesn't matter if Carey and I are Black and a woman and then everyone else is what, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not going to change anything.
I didn't want to say that, but that's what I meant.
100%. So then as a result, right, we're building all of our teams in-house. We have in-house marketing. Like, you know me, man, I'm a marketer. There ain't no way I'm hiring.
Talk about organic marketing. I want you to touch on that real quick.
So we got marketing, we got insurance operations, we have engineering, we have data science. Right now, our team is 87.5% diverse, so of color, non-male, and from immigrant backgrounds. Our CTO is from Morocco. Me as a head of marketing, Dominican. Our ads growth, Dominican. Our marketing ops guy is Iranian. Our designer, Iranian. Our head of data science, Chinese. Our sub engineer, another one is Dominican. So by the way, because I'm Dominican, like 75% of our staff or something crazy is Dominican, but
we need to stop hiring Dominicans, unfortunately.
Hey, let me ask you this, John. Do you have an initiative to go and recruit from historically Black colleges and universities? I saw you at the Black Enterprise event a couple of years ago. What's your emphasis in that regard?
100%. We don't have a firm mandate, but we got to, man. And in our Yeah, I think our seeing it different is going to be our superpower. So we want to make sure that we don't skew too much in any one direction.
Sure.
At any given time. So right now, like for example, I started noticing, hey, my marketing team is too male. So our next hire was a woman. Our data team is becoming a little too Asian, because that's a field that is very prominent in Asian communities, is model development, but we got to make sure that that has some diverse representation. Our insurance ops started white. So Carey said, hey, our next hire has to be, a Black man. And I said, all right, cool, I'm with that. And so
I'm with that too.
yeah. And so anyway, that's kind of how we're thinking about. We're a little too small to like have a mandate to hire from HBCU, because
sure.
All in all, we'll probably have 10, 11 people. But if a startup works, a startup ain't growing linearly. A startup is growing from 10 people to 50 people the next year.
Oh yeah,
150 people the next year to 500 people to 1,000 people within 4 years if we do it right. And that's what we're hoping for. So
talking about that, and I know we're at your time limit, and I don't want to abuse that because we want to help come back, because we're in Texas. Talk about your guerrilla organic marketing strategy. And another comment you made on both EYL and the Breakfast Club was that you didn't waste money on the Super Bowl ads because you were mission driven. Now, here's what I know about Texas, because I'm from Chicago. I've only been here 13 years, and I came down just like you, had a startup. They like doing business with Texans. What is your strategy to actually develop the relationship and endear yourself to people who are Texans from the Republic, the way they do business? Have you thought about that? And what does that look like? Because we think we can help you facilitate that.
I appreciate that. And to me, it's no different than kind of my early days in Harlem. I won the hearts of Harlemites over by rolling my sleeves up, by going out, by shaking hands. And if I can't shake hands, and I'm bumping your fist. And if I can't bump your fist, and I'm waving from 6 feet, and I'm buying you coffee, and I'm introducing myself, and I'm going up to the community boards, and I'm going to the local police precincts and their quarterly meetings and their weekly meetings, and I'm going to the schools, and we're doing car washes for people, powered by Loop. We want to help people get on the move. Can we get a Loop bus and drive around and introduce ourselves to people and have our people canvas? And like, yeah, we're a tech startup, but don't get it twisted. Like, my roots are like yours, bootstrap, on the ground, from the mud, and you cannot code your way to $1 billion business. I don't give a fuck what any Silicon Valley series says, and so we're applying that same thing here. Now, the way you are able to distribute that at scale is with the production of content. Is capturing that essence in an authentic way, and effectively, social media is about the plumbing of the world's communication, and what runs through the plumbing is content. You don't even have an opportunity to talk about me if you don't have content. If I'm supplying you constantly with content that, by the way, has nothing to do with insurance.
Right.
Insurance is that's where people go wrong. They think that if you're in an industry, well, you got to talk about bananas. I want to talk about why you eat the banana. We don't want to talk about insurance. We want to talk about the things that you get insurance for. You want to get on the move. You got to get to work. You're building your business. You're picking your kids up. You're going to the ball game. So when you can create content at the intersection of what you do and what your audience cares about, that's the sweet spot. That's where you build brand, and that's where you insert yourself into the conversation. Because while Geico and Progressive are going toe to toe on saving you 10% in 10 minutes, we're talking about, fueling your hustle, and we're meeting you where you are. And, we're doing things like, for collective safe driving in the community of Austin, a local small business, gets a grant, or we're getting you a cup of coffee on the local cafe, on our dime. So like we're being really intentional about developing an array of positive experiences in our product, because Loop has the unique opportunity of moving through time and space with our customers. That's something that every other carrier gives you a piece of paper and that shit sits in your car, but we're moving through time and space with you. So when that happens, how can we be on the journey together with you?
Carey Anne, when you guys also educate the consumer primarily maybe the senior sector. I know that's probably not your primary demographic right now, but what I learned when I got into bill pay business, a lot of the process was education and eliminating the fear.
Yeah.
And what's your strategy to go in the community and eliminate that fear for the older segment who may not be millennials, who may not be living totally, by the smartphone, but they will have to because everybody's doing it that way, but they have their reservations and they are just afraid. How do we relate to them in this capacity from Luke?
Yeah, I think it's really important to give people information that they want so that they feel like they're in a value transfer when they're paying for something with the companies they're paying. So if it's a senior citizen or if it's a high school student, on the flip side of things, just getting into a car for the first time, Loop is committing to share information back with the driver to help them better manage their own risk. What we're not going to do is point our finger at you and say, you hard broke, I'm going to ding you, that's going to cost you more insurance. What we are going to do is say, hey, here's a place that's really unsafe to drive. We see a lot of car crashes here. You were speeding here. If there's a place that you think, you want to slow down or just be more conscious of your speed, this would be a good place to do it. Helps you keep yourself and your family safer. And at the same time, hopefully, ends up in you getting home safe and not getting into a crash and not having to file a claim and go through all of the pain and suffering of being involved in a car crash. And so I think there's a great opportunity to, I wouldn't call it educate, but help, like John said, sort of be the driver, a companion to the individual to just share with them how they might become a better driver and hopefully see the results in their performance.
Absolutely. I know, John, you said you got a hard stop.
I got to run.
We don't want to violate that.
Because I really greatly enjoyed the show. Thank you guys so much for having us. It's really
definitely appreciate
it. This is going to be our revenue milestone podcast. So when we hit 10, our first internal is 1 million, but that'll be too soon, hopefully. But when we hit 20 million, when we hit 10 million, we'll come back. When we hit 50 million, we'll come back. And then when we hit 100 million, we'll come back.
What I would like to be able to do is introduce you to some major organizations that access 100,000 people right off the cuff in Texas. If we could talk about that, I've got 20 years collectively with my partner in industries that you can hit the ground running right now. If we could talk about that sometime in the near future.
Love it. I just sent you my email and I sent you,
And
send you my email, hit me. I definitely want to chat.
I want to send you guys a gift for coming on my show. If we may be able to do that, if you can send me an address, I'll have it delivered to you personally from my partner in Austin. This is a Black-owned tequila company.
I love tequila. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Well, we appreciate you guys. Have a pom-pom lifestyle. That's plenty of money, peace of mind. Come join us on the beaches of the World Club. DJ the Money Coach. Thank you, John. Thank you, Carey Anne. And we'll talk to you soon.